The sky burned red when the first warship descended. No one on the colony world had expected a fight that day. Farmers were in the fields, children playing in the dust, traders selling goods in the square. Then the shadows of alien ships covered the land, and silence spread like a sickness. People froze where they stood, watching the hunters of the stars arrive. The warriors were not here for peace. They came for conquest. And standing in their path was a single human named Kale. Kale had not been a soldier for many years. He had fought once, long ago, in a forgotten war beyond Earth's rim. Those memories he had buried deep, hiding them beneath simple work and quiet living. Yet, when the colony screamed and people ran, his old instincts awoke. His eyes, sharp and cold, turned toward the approaching figures. 10 alien warriors stepped from their ship, their armor shining with symbols of victory from countless battles. They carried weapons no farmer could stand against. Still, Kale did not run. He stayed, tall and calm, his hands steady at his sides. The leader of the warriors laughed. His voice cut through the square like steel scraping stone. One human stands before us. Where are your soldiers, your armies, your defenses? His laughter spread to the others, a low growl of mockery. But Kale did not answer. He studied them, every move, every shift of weight, every flicker of confidence in their eyes. 10 against 1. The odds were not fair, but battles were never fair. He knew that better than anyone. The only question was how much it would cost them to test him. Villagers watched from hiding. They saw Kale stand as if carved from rock, refusing to bend. They whispered prayers, though none truly believed. What could one human do against 10 seasoned killers? Even the children, hiding under their mother's arms, turned their faces away, unwilling to watch the certain end. Kale did not look back. At them, he had already chosen. His fight was not for his own life but for theirs, and that meant hesitation could not exist. He moved. The first warrior lunged with a spear tipped in glowing energy. Kale shifted to the side with sudden speed, his body remembering the dance of battle as if no years had passed. His hand struck the shaft, breaking its aim, and his knee drove into the alien's chest. The warrior fell with a cry that made the others snarl in fury. They rushed together, blades flashing, claws tearing. The square became chaos in an instant. But within that chaos, Kale found rhythm. He weaved between strikes, turned strength against strength, and each movement dropped another enemy. The dust rose with every crash of armor, every scream of rage, every body hitting the ground. 5 fell before the crowd could even count. It was not possible, they thought. No one human could do this. Yet their eyes showed them truth. Kale's silence was as terrifying as his skill. He fought with no cry, no roar, only precise, deadly strikes. Blood splashed across stone. Sparks lit the air. The warriors, once so confident, began to doubt. Doubt was the crack in armor that Kale always searched for. And when it appeared, he tore it wider. The 6th warrior tried to rally the others, shouting that Kale was only flesh and bone. But when his blade came down, Kale caught his wrist, twisted it until bones snapped, and ended him with a strike that dropped the warrior lifeless to the ground. The last 4 circled carefully now. Their laughter had died. Fear replaced it. They had trained for years to be killers, but nothing prepared them for this human. Kale's breath was steady, his eyes colder than the war itself. He raised his hand and beckoned them forward. The challenge was clear. The villagers gasped. This was not just survival. This was a message. Kale had no army, no shield, no support. But he was teaching everyone watching the truth the galaxy had long forgotten. Humans were not weak. Humans were not prey. When cornered, when threatened, when outnumbered, they became something no enemy could predict. The last 4 warriors hesitated, knowing they had already lost. Kale waited, still impatient, ready to finish what they had begun. And in that moment, the world changed forever. The last 4 warriors stood in a broken circle around Kale. The dust of the colony square swirled between them, carrying the iron scent of blood. Smoke rose from shattered stalls and burning cloth where energy weapons had struck. The villagers, still hiding, dared not speak, but their wide eyes reflected hope they had never known before. Kale remained steady, waiting, his breath calm despite the storm he had unleashed. His silence was louder than any war cry. The leader of the warriors growled, his fangs bared beneath a helm of black steel. He had never known fear before this day. No single man had ever faced his squad and lived. Yet 6 of his warriors lay broken in the dirt, their weapons useless, their pride stripped. He motioned with his clawed hand, forcing the others to close in. Their eyes burned with anger, but behind that anger hid doubt. Kale saw it clearly. Doubt was poison, and he let it spread before striking. The first to move was desperate. He came from behind, swinging a curved blade designed to cut through bone. Kale pivoted, letting the strike pass, and drove his elbow into the warrior's throat. The alien choked and collapsed, clawing at the ground for air that would never return. Kale did not pause. His hand caught the blade before it hit the dirt. And with one motion, he turned the weapon against its former master's comrade. A sharp arc of silver ended the 7th life. The blade hummed in Kale's grip, hot and vibrating with alien energy. For the first time, he allowed himself a thin smile. The leader roared, charging forward with the last 2. Their attack was furious, wild, meant to overwhelm. Kale dropped low, his body moving as if guided by something beyond thought. Sparks flew as the stolen blade clashed with alien steel. The noise of battle filled the square, drowning out even the crackle of flames. Villagers watched with trembling hands pressed to their lips. They had never seen war before, not like this. They had only read old words about Earth's past, about men and women who stood when all hope was lost. Now before their eyes, those words lived again. Kale sidestepped, letting the leader's strike crash into the ground. Stone split beneath the blow. Dust blinded the air, but Kale's movements never faltered. He twisted, brought the stolen blade up, and cut across the leader's armor. The warrior staggered back, growling in pain. The final comrade tried to protect him, but Kale pressed harder, striking with cold precision. The 8th warrior fell to the ground, his lifeblood glowing faintly as it seeped into the earth. Only 2 remained. The leader, wounded but furious, and Kale, unbroken and calm. The silence that followed was heavier than the battle itself. The crowd of hidden villagers leaned forward, their hearts racing. They wanted to cheer, but fear of the alien ship above chained their voices. Kale stood with the blade in his hand, his chest rising slowly, his eyes locked on the leader. The alien spat blood and raised his weapon again. His voice shook, though he tried to hide it. "You think this changes anything? Human? You kill us, and more will come. Your kind will burn." His words were meant to frighten, but to the villagers they sounded hollow. To Kale, they were nothing more than noise. Kale stepped forward, and the leader flinched despite himself. That single movement told the truth. The galaxy feared numbers, armies, fleets, overwhelming force. But here, now that belief shattered, 1 human against 10. Already, the impossible had been done. The alien's roar came again, louder, desperate, trying to hide the crack in his soul. He attacked with every ounce of fury left in him. Kale did not retreat. He advanced. The stolen blade met the alien's strike, and the clash echoed through the square. Sparks rained, steel shrieked, and in one swift motion, Kale turned the warrior's strength against him. The blade pierced through his chest. The leader's roar died in his throat. The villagers gasped as the alien leader dropped to his knees, coughing blood, his weapon slipping from his hand. His gaze met Kale's for the last time. Hatred burned there, but also something else. Recognition. A silent understanding that this human was not prey, not weak, but something far worse. A reminder that Earth's children carried fire in their bones. The leader collapsed into the dust, his armor clattering, and the battle was done. 10 warriors had surrounded one man. None had walked away. Only Kale remained standing, silence. Stretched across the colony. Even the children did not breathe. Kale looked around at them, his eyes steady. He said nothing, but his presence spoke louder than words. Fear began to slip from the villagers, replaced by awe. They stepped out slowly, some with tears, some with trembling hands. For the first time, they saw hope, and it wore the shape of one human who had refused to fall. Yet above, the alien ship still hovered. Its engines hummed like a warning. This fight was not finished, and Kale knew the real war was only beginning. The square lay in ruins. Smoke curled upward from shattered stalls and burning timbers. 10 alien warriors lay scattered on the ground, their armor cracked, their weapons broken. Kale stood among them, still as stone, the stolen blade in his hand glowing faintly with fading energy. Villagers crept from their hiding places. Mothers pulled children close. Farmers, their hands calloused from work in the soil, looked at him with new eyes. The man they had known as a quiet settler was no longer the same. He was something else, something dangerous. But before relief could settle, the sky growled. The alien warship above shifted. Its engines roared, casting hot wind across the ground. The sound made the villagers clutch their ears. They had hoped, foolishly, that the death of the 10 warriors would end it. But warships were not commanded by 10. Kale knew this. He lifted his gaze, his jaw tightening. He had not expected mercy, not from them. He waited, shoulders square. As the ship's belly split open and new shadows fell across the colony, from the darkness within, another squad emerged. Their armor gleamed sharper, their banners painted with marks of higher rank. These were not ordinary warriors. These were champions. Gasps broke from the villagers. Fear returned like a wave crashing down. They began to scatter, dragging children back toward their homes. Kale did not move. His breath remained steady, though his body bore the weight of battle already fought. Sweat slid down his temple. His muscles ached, but his eyes did not waver. He had survived 10. Now 5 more descended, each larger, heavier, more brutal than the last. The ship's engines dimmed, leaving only silence and the thud of armored boots on broken stone. The champions formed a line before him. Their leader, taller than the rest, pointed his blade toward Kale and spoke. You should not exist. One man cannot undo 10 of ours, yet you stand. That makes you dangerous, and dangerous things must be erased. His voice was deep, carried by the echo of his helm. Around him the other champions growled, their movements slow and deliberate, meant to show control. They were not reckless like the first squad. They had studied his fight from above. They knew he was not to be taken lightly. And still, they believed in their strength. 5 against 1. Numbers had not been enough before, but arrogance is hard to kill. Kale tightened his grip on the stolen blade. Its hum vibrated through his palm. His heart thudded against his ribs. Steady and unshaken. He said nothing. Silence had always been his weapon, the kind that unnerved enemies more than words ever could. Around him, the villagers crouched in hiding once more. They whispered prayers, some for him, some for themselves. Few believed he could win again, and Kale did not blame them. He did not fight for belief. He fought because retreat was not an option. If he fell, the colony would burn. And so he stepped forward, ready. The champions attacked as one. Their speed was terrifying. Blades struck from every direction, each movement honed by years of training. But Kale had lived war longer than they had breathed. His body bent, twisted, slipped between strikes. Sparks exploded as metal clashed. The square lit with chaos once again. The first champion swung heavy, aiming to crush. Kale ducked low, slid beneath the strike, and drove his blade upward. Armor cracked, blood spilled, and the giant staggered back, roaring. Kale pressed, swift as lightning, finishing him before the others could close. 1 down, 4 remained. Second came fast, striking with twin blades that moved like silver storms. Kale blocked one, let the other glance off his armor, then turned his body to use the warrior's momentum against him. A twist, a shove, and the alien crashed into rubble. Kale's blade found the gap in his helm before he could rise. Another. Fell. The crowd of villagers trembled, disbelief flooding them once more. 2 champions down, in less time than it took to blink, but Kale was not unmarked. A cut burned across his arm, blood seeping, and his breath grew heavier. The last 3 spread apart, learning from the others' mistakes. They circled, watching, waiting for an opening. Their leader's eyes never left Kale's. He raised his blade, and the others struck in perfect sync. Kale blocked the first strike, parried the second, but the third cut across his shoulder, drawing blood. Pain seared through him, but he did not falter. He countered, swift and merciless, his blade piercing one champion's chest before spinning to knock aside another's strike. The ground shook with each clash. Kale's arm burned, his vision swam, yet still he stood. Still he fought. At last, only the leader remained. His armor glowed faintly, carved with scars of victories past. He stared at Kale, fury and disbelief mixing in his gaze. "You are only one man," he growled. "Why will you not fall?" His voice trembled with the first touch of fear. Kale raised his blade, his chest rising heavy, his face pale but unbroken. His answer came not in words, but in the way he stepped forward. His silence was the reply. The leader roared, charging with all his might. The clash of their blades lit the sky. Sparks rained, dust rose. The battle between them shook the square, each strike echoing across the colony. The end of this fight would decide more than survival. It would decide the fate of all who watched. The square was silent except for the ringing clash of steel. Kale and the champion leader circled each other in the dust, their blades flashing with every strike. Sparks lit the ruins, shadows danced on broken walls, and the crowd of villagers held their breath. Mothers clutched children tighter. Farmers gripped tools as if they were weapons, though none dared step forward. The fate of their colony hung in the balance, balanced on the edge of one human's blade. The champion leader moved with fury, each strike faster, harder, heavier than before. His blows carried the weight of rage, his strength fueled by the humiliation of seeing his comrades fall. Kale's arms ached as he parried, each impact rattling through his bones. His wounds burned, blood trailing down his side, but his eyes stayed cold and sharp. He had learned long ago that pain was not an enemy, it was a reminder to keep moving. With every strike blocked, with every step taken back, Kale's mind searched, measuring, waiting for the single mistake that would open the way. The leader lunged, his blade aimed for Kale's chest. Kale turned his body at the last moment, the strike tearing only cloth, not flesh. Dust sprayed as the alien's strength split the ground where Kale had stood. Kale countered, fast, the stolen blade cutting across the leader's arm. Black blood spilled, hissing on the ground. The alien snarled in fury, but Kale pressed harder. Their blades clashed again and again, the sound ringing out like thunder. To the villagers it seemed endless, like watching titans struggle. Yet, within the storm, Kale's silence spoke louder than any roar. The leader tried to push him back with sheer strength. He swung wide, forcing Kale to dodge instead of strike. Then, with speed surprising for his size, the alien slammed his armored shoulder into Kale, sending him crashing against the remains of a stone wall. Pain tore through Kale's ribs, and for the first time, the villagers cried out in fear. The leader raised his weapon high, ready to end it in one crushing blow, but Kale did not stay down. He rolled aside, dust filling his mouth, and the massive blade split the wall instead of his skull. Using the moment, Kale surged upward, driving his blade deep into the alien's side. The leader roared, his voice shaking the square. The alien staggered, clutching at his wound, but still he did not fall. His strength was monstrous, his pride refusing to let him collapse. He swung again, wild with desperation. Kale blocked, sparks exploding, the impact forcing him to his knees. The villager's heart sank. It seemed impossible to hold. Yet Kale, teeth clenched, forced himself upward again. His blade locked with the aliens, their eyes meeting. In that frozen moment, Kale saw the truth. The leader did not fight for his people. He fought for ego, for pride, for the belief that fear alone could rule the galaxy. Kale's voice finally broke the silence, calm and steady. "You've already lost." The words shook the air more than the clash of weapons. The leader snarled, trying to push harder, but his wound slowed him. Kale twisted, let the force pass, and drove his blade upward in one clean strike. The weapon pierced through the alien's chest, bursting out the other side. The roar died in the leader's throat. He froze, disbelief filling his eyes. Then he collapsed, his armor crashing into the dirt. The ground trembled, and the square fell silent. Kale stood above him, bloodied, wounded, but unbroken. The villagers erupted. Cheers rose, mixed with tears and shouts. They had seen the impossible twice now. Not 10 warriors, not 5 champions. Not even their leader could bring the human down. Mothers sobbed as they held their children, whispering that they were safe. Farmers dropped to their knees, their eyes shining with awe. To them, Kale was no longer just a man. He was a shield, a savior. His silence had turned into a roar louder than armies. They looked at him as one looks at a symbol, not just of survival, but of defiance. Yet Kale only lowered his blade, his chest rising heavy. He was not a hero. He was simply a man who could not walk away. Above, the alien ship stirred again. Its engines groaned, shifting as if in anger. Lights flared across its hull, and from its belly came a sound like thunder rolling through the clouds. The villagers froze, their joy cut short. Kale lifted his eyes. He had expected this. He knew the fight was not over. Armies did not end with leaders, and ships did not retreat with one defeat. More would come. The ground shook as the ship's panels opened wider, revealing something larger, darker, more terrible waiting within. The villagers cowered, clutching each other, whispering prayers again. Kale tightened his grip, ready once more, but before the next wave could descend, a sound echoed across the sky. Not from the alien ship but from beyond. The horizon lit with streaks of fire. Engines howled, cutting through the heavens. Human ships rushed toward the colony, their hulls gleaming with the symbols of Earth. The villagers cried out in shock, their voices trembling with joy. Kale's lips curved into the faintest shadow of a smile. He had not called them, yet they had come. Humanity was not silent. Humanity had heard. The sky burned bright as streaks of fire cut through the clouds. Human ships, sleek and sharp, roared across the heavens. Their engines painted trails of light above the colony, answering a call no one had spoken, but all had felt. Villagers dropped to their knees, some weeping, some raising their arms in awe. For generations, they had believed themselves forgotten, abandoned by Earth and its fleets. Yet here they were, arriving in the hour of despair. Humanity had not forgotten. Humanity had returned. The alien warship trembled as it adjusted its stance in the sky. Its cannons rotated, glowing with energy, aiming toward the incoming fleet. Kale stood still in the ruins of the square, his stolen blade dripping blood, his body aching with wounds. His chest rose with heavy breaths, but his eyes never left the massive enemy ship. He had fought 10 warriors, then 5 champions and their leader, and he had lived. But this was different. A single human against soldiers was one battle. A fleet against a warship was another. The colony would become a battlefield unlike anything they had seen. The first human ship fired. Blue light tore across the sky and smashed against the alien warship shields. The impact shook the ground beneath the villagers' feet. The alien ship responded with a blast of red fire that burned across the horizon, striking one of the human cruisers. The sky became a storm of war, fire and smoke raining like meteors. The villagers cowered, clutching each other as shockwaves shook their homes. Kale stood tall, his eyes locked on the fight above. For years, he had hidden from war. Now he could not escape it. War had come for him, and he would not turn away. From the colony's edge, soldiers poured from the newly landed human dropships. They moved fast, setting up defenses, ushering villagers towards safe zones. Their armor gleamed, their weapons humming with power. One soldier saw Kale standing alone in the square and froze. Recognition spread across the man's face. "By the stars," he whispered, his voice trembling, "it's him." The word spread quickly among the troops, rippling like fire across dry grass. Soon, all of them knew. This was no ordinary man. This was the human who had stood alone against 10, who had slain champions with nothing but will and steel. The commander of the human forces approached, his voice strong but edged with disbelief. "You fought them? Alone?" His eyes scanned. The bodies of the fallen aliens, the wrecked square, the blade in Kale's hand. Kale gave a single nod. His silence was enough. The commander's face hardened, not with doubt, but with respect. "Then stand with us. Humanity fights today not only for this colony, but for every world they think they can enslave." His words carried weight, but Kale said nothing. He did not need speeches. He simply stepped forward, his blade still in hand. The soldiers parted, letting him through, as if instinct itself told them to follow. Above, the alien warship unleashed another storm of fire. Human cruisers dodged, some struck, explosions lighting the heavens. Yet the humans pressed harder, their formation tight, their weapons fierce. The battle raged, each strike shaking the ground. Villagers peeked from hiding, watching the impossible unfold. For years they had lived in fear of alien power, believing themselves weak. Now they saw the truth. Humanity did not bow. Humanity did not run. Even when outnumbered, even when surrounded, humans endured. And Kale was the proof standing before them. The commander raised his voice again, calling to his troops. "Defend the colony. Hold until the fleet breaks their shield." The soldiers spread across the streets, ready for the wave of ground reinforcements the alien warship would surely send. Kale positioned himself at the front, where the danger would strike first. His body throbbed with pain, but pain no longer mattered. He was no longer just one man. He had become the shield of the colony, the blade of defiance. Behind him, villagers looked at him not with fear, but with faith. They believed because he had given them reason to believe. Moments later, the alien ship answered. New transports broke free from its hull, descending like black spears. The ground shook as they landed outside the colony walls, and more alien troops spilled forth. Not 10, not 5, not champions hundreds. Their roars echoed across the plains. Their weapons glowing, the villagers trembled. Even the soldiers clenched their jaws. Against hundreds, even humanity's reinforcements seemed fragile. Kale stepped forward, the blade gleaming in his hand. He raised it high, not with words, but with action. The soldiers saw it, and their hearts steadied. The colony was no longer just a place to defend. It was a line in the sand. a place where humanity would show the galaxy what it meant to fight them. The alien army surged forward, their roars shaking the ground. Human cannons fired, tearing into their ranks, blasts lighting the battlefield. The air filled with smoke, fire, screams, and steel. Kale charged, faster than the soldiers beside him, his blade flashing as he struck the first alien down. His silence was gone now. With every strike, with every enemy slain, he roared not for himself, but for the colony, for the villagers, for all who watched. His voice became the sound of war, carried across the field, rising above the clash of armies. And for the first time, the aliens faltered. They had seen humans resist before, but never like this. Never with such fury. The battlefield shook with fire and fury. Alien troops poured across the plain like a flood, their weapons blazing, their voices filled with rage. Human soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder, their cannons answering in thunder. Smoke thickened. Flames burned, and the colony walls trembled under the storm. At the center of it all was Kale. His blade glowed with stolen alien energy, his armor dented and stained with blood. His voice rose in a roar that cut through the chaos, a sound that pulled soldiers forward and made villagers believe. This was not just a fight. This was history being written in dust and fire. The alien wave crashed hard, their numbers overwhelming. But every time one came within reach of Kale, they fell. His strikes were brutal, precise, unrelenting. He moved as if the battle had been waiting for him all his life. Soldiers fought harder when they saw him. Villagers, hidden in safety zones, prayed louder. For the first time in memory, humans did not hide from power, they became it. The aliens began to falter, not because of numbers, but because of fear. They had believed humans weak, prey to be hunted. But now they saw the truth written in Kale's every strike. The alien commander aboard the warship watched with fury. His voice thundered across the coms to his soldiers. Break him. Tear the human apart. Yet the harder they tried, the more they fell. Kale carved a path through their strongest lines, his blade gleaming with fire. Wounds burned across his body, but he never stopped. His legs threatened to buckle, but his will did not bend. Pain was nothing. Failure was not an option. Every strike he delivered carried a message. Humans did not bow. Humans did not break. Not here. Not today. Above, the human fleet pushed harder. Cannons cracked against the alien warship shields, blasts of light shaking the heavens. One cruiser fell in fire, but two more surged forward, tearing deeper into the enemy defenses. The sky became a storm of explosions, ships weaving between. Fire like wolves among giants. Slowly, cracks spread across the alien warship shields. Light burst from the wounds, and for the first time, the massive vessel trembled. The commander roared in denial, but the galaxy had already shifted. The human fleet pressed harder, sensing victory within reach. On the ground, Kale faced the final challenge. Through the smoke and fire, a monstrous alien strode forward. Taller than the others, clad in heavy black armor, wielding a hammer glowing with pure energy. Every step shook the earth. The alien soldiers roared louder, their voices rising with hope. To them, this was their champion, their executioner, the one who would crush the human who had defied them. Villagers cried out in fear. Soldiers paused, their courage tested. But Kale stepped forward, blade in hand, his face pale but unbroken. His voice cut through the battlefield, calm and steady. One more. The champion charged. The ground split beneath the hammer's first strike, dust exploding into the air. Kale dodged, rolling across broken stone, rising with his blade ready. The second strike came faster, heavier. Sparks flew as Kale blocked, the impact rattling. His bones, his knees threatened to collapse, but he held. He struck back, his blade carving across the champion's armor, leaving a glowing scar. The alien roared, swinging wide. Kale moved in close, too close for the hammer to strike. He slashed again and again, his blade cutting deeper. Blood hissed on the ground. The alien staggered, raising his hammer for one final blow. Kale drove his blade upward, piercing through armor, through flesh, through heart. The champion froze, disbelief in his eyes, then fell with a crash that shook the earth. The battlefield went silent. Alien soldiers froze, staring at their fallen champion. Their roars died in their throats. Fear spread like fire through their ranks. Humans pressed forward, their shouts rising, their weapons blazing. The aliens broke. First in hesitation, then in panic, until finally the tide reversed. They turned, fleeing back toward their transports. Above, the alien warship, its shields cracked and hull burning, tried to retreat. The human fleet closed in, firing in relentless unison. The massive vessel groaned, split apart, and fell from the sky in a storm of fire. Its wreckage burned across the horizon, the last sound of a defeated enemy. The colony erupted in cheers. Soldiers embraced, villagers wept with joy. For the first time, they had faced the full force of their enemy and endured. They looked to Kale, still standing amid the ruins, his blade dripping, his body broken but unyielding. He had not only saved them, he had changed them. No longer would they whisper about human weakness. No longer would they hide in fear. Kale had reminded them of what they truly were. Survivors, fighters, defiance made flesh. The commander of the coast fleet approached him, saluting with deep respect. "You've done more than win a battle," he said. "You've given us a banner to follow. The galaxy will hear of this day. And when they do, they will remember your name." Kale lowered his blade, his face weary. He looked at the villagers, the soldiers, the children peeking out with wide eyes. He shook his head. "Not my name," he said quietly. "Ours." The people understood. The story was no longer about one man. It was about humanity. About what? It meant to stand when no one believed you could. The colony bells rang in triumph, echoing through the night. The battle was over. The war had only begun. But after this day, the galaxy would never see humans the same again.